Hey gang, Joyce with Skipping Calves Farms here. I've been working on a new chore today. What I'm trying to do is figure out a good way of processing walnuts. I've taken several ideas offline, off the internet, YouTube. There's some great information there. I'm a firm believing in getting a postdoctorate degree at YouTube University. One of the guys was talking about dehusking your walnuts so you don't have to drive over a car or push them through a hole or hammer them and do them by hand. And what he teaches is that you get and you use a 1/2-inch drill, and you use a 36-inch flat, one of those mortar mixes where it's got the blades that are flat, like a solid propeller, and there's two of them that go down the shaft. Well, I don't have one of those. And so this is the only 1/2-inch corded drill I have. And if you'll notice, I've got a bucket of shells here because I ended up trying to take shells off by hand, because this is the paddle where the blade, let me do this here. Okay, that's a better shot. That's the paddle type that I've got. That's what you would normally have for mixing paint. I also ordered a wrong one. Let me show you the wrong one, another wrong one that I ordered. This was the one that I remembered that he described incorrectly. So I ordered a cement or mortar paddle. Now, this one I ordered and I've received, and I haven't used it yet. The other one I was getting ready to take off of my 1/2-inch drill, and I realized I don't have the chuck key for that drill. Couldn't find it anywhere. And I didn't want to order one online, pay for shipping, and wait for several more days. So I just decided, after a little bit of prayer, that I would just go with what I had. So that's probably why I left it on the drill, was I had a hard time getting it on there. I got it on there real tight, put the chuck key in a real safe place, and now it's gone. But it's an old corded drill, and as you can see, the cord had been damaged. I bought it used at a pawn shop, probably the better part of 10 years ago, because I would have used it for making sugar water for my bees. That's what I bought it for. So I went ahead and started. I put all of the walnut shells, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, there you go. I dumped about 200. I figured about 150 plus or minus will fit into 140 to 160 will fit into a milk crate. And that was basically what I was working with. I was working with a milk crate that was totally full of walnuts. And so I dumped it in there, added the extra 2 inches of water, stirred and stirred and stirred and stirred, let it sit for a while, stirred and stirred, and then I'm going, this ain't working. So then what I did was I took all of the walnuts out of the inside of the drum, and then I said, well, I'll just try and dehusk them as best I can by hand, which is what I did. I just dumped them back into the milk crate, and then basically I was just sitting here, and took about a half an hour, and one by one, he also said, excuse me while I sit down, he also indicated that the best way to try and dehusk, if you're going to do it by hand, was just using rubber mallet. And I got a couple of these, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago from Walmart for less than $2 a piece. So this one's getting a little chewed up. But that's what I did. I came out here and pulled off what I could. And I ended up with the better part of, what, 3 gallons, 4 gallons, 3 gallons plus of pieces. And then I put them back into the drum and started stirring again. And I guess I worked the drill, I guess about 5 minutes. It started to get pretty hot. But if you can see now, you can kind of see into the drum. And you can see space in between those walnut hulls. Well, once you get all of the husk off of the walnut, that nut is going to drop. And there's an extra 2 inches plus of water now. So these are the only ones less than 1 layer full of walnuts that have not been dehusked to the point where they're gonna sink. So so I'm for experimentation, rookie trying to figure this thing out sake, I was just going to go ahead and say, okay, well, we've got more on the bottom than we do at the top. I'll probably spin this a little bit more and see if I can get a few more to sink. And then I went through and looked at the instructions that he provided. And the next thing is going to be to take your husked walnuts out and pour them through a container that's got holes that's small enough, holes that are small enough to catch the walnuts, the smaller walnut shell, but they're big enough, but they're small enough. They're big enough to let the small pieces through, and they're small enough to catch the walnuts. So and basically I said, well, what are we gonna do? He made a big wire cage out of 1/2 or 3/4 inch wire cloth, woven wire. And I'm thinking, well, you could probably do the same thing with chicken wire, but normal chicken wire is going to be too big. And the smaller chicken wire, the gauge of the wire gets pretty thin. So I turned around and, my driveway is just this great big cluttered mess. Well, there's actually some organization to it. And I had put out some wire over here and set it over here under the table for another reason. So I had several pieces of pre-cut 1/2 inch woven wire. Each of those pieces was about the same size. I had used them to make protectors around trees. So I flattened them out, and then I started thinking, well, what do I have container-wise? Well, I've got these milk crates. So then what I did was I said, okay, well, I'm going to be doing more walnuts. I'm going to need to be able to move this from one crate to another pretty easily. And so what I actually did was I measured the inside of the crate, and it's 12 inches. But you could get away with probably 11 to 11.5 on the inside and still have pretty good space. And that's the way my measurements worked with the lengths that I had. So bear with me here just a moment, gang. So what I was able to do was I was able to figure out, well, let me take it apart and we'll just go from there. Give me a moment. I'm going to put you on pause for a moment. So, gang, I'm going to try and see if I can get some more holes off of these. Probably I'll just transfer them to another container, take the ones that are already sinking. I'll flush them through here, dispose of that water properly, and then the ones that are already hauled and sinking, they'll come back into the empty drum with fresh, clean water and get another rinse around. One other tip or trick I'll show you. I've done work in the past where you were dealing with stuff you did not want on your hands, environmental type stuff, and so I'm used to double gloving or wearing different gloves. So what I did was I'm always using what I have. So I had some nitrile gloves. I don't just use them and throw them away. I keep them. When I take them off, I turn them inside out. That way they dry. You can just turn them back inside out and just blow into them and turn them right side out that way real quick. And then I'll put on the nitrile gloves, and then I have some old, mostly worn out garden gloves. These are just the inexpensive ones you can get on sale for $12 or $15 or whatever. Well, I keep them around, and I keep them around even when there's no nitrile left. As you can see, they're pretty bare boned. They're great for working with fencing when you're putting out poly braid, and you just don't want that braid running past your unprotected skin. They're great for working with the chickens when you just really don't want that manure on your hands. And they're great when you're working with nitrile gloves with the walnuts, because you don't want the nitrile gloves to get caught on something and tear, because then you got a mess. And they'll cut and tear real easily if you've never worked with them, especially the ones that are just, your normal ones. So put the nitrile gloves on, put the black gloves over them. Those black gloves are stained. They're going to be nasty. I mean, I don't know if I can... Yeah, that's going to end up to be a permanent brown spot on that concrete block. So better on that. And I don't know if you can see, but that finger just pushing down on that water off my glove is now a little darker. So we're gonna go ahead and sign off. Remember about the double gloves. Remember, you don't have to throw everything away as soon as it's not pristine. The single best way, if you talk to any of the guys that have been around a while, what's Burke's last name? He's the former manager of Desiree Ranches. He was responsible for millions of acres. Basically, everybody agrees that as a rancher and a farmer, the single biggest way to increase your profits are to decrease your costs. If you're running livestock, whether it's sheep or cattle, your single biggest overhead is going to be winter feed. You know, so that's why rotational grazing, that's why grass-fed beef is so much more profitable, because you're not buying grain, you're not feeding hay, you're not running equipment. Jim Garish, I think, put it this way. He might have been quoting Burke, but I don't remember. He said, your cows are your employees. Now, for me, I don't have cows, but I have sheep. Same thing. Your livestock are your employees. Don't do their work for them. And so they should be able to rustle up their own grub. You shouldn't have to drive, you shouldn't have to do Uber Eats or, go online and order food for them, right? So anyway, I ramble a little bit. But that tip with the gloves is really, really good. Also, if you're working outside and you're working, it's not freezing cold here in Tennessee, but early in the morning during the winter time, a lot of times it's in the 20 degrees. And a lot of times there's not ice, but there's freezing cold water on everything. And what's my point? My point is this. You put a pair of nitrile gloves on inside your regular work gloves, or if you're working with the nitrile type gloves, or any kind of glove for that matter, it keeps your hands from getting wet. Now, granted, your gloves aren't going to feel as warm as they would if your gloves were dry, but your hands are still going to stay warmer because you're not subject to the evaporation. And it's just another layer. So with that, gang, I'm going to get back to my chores, and I'll wish you blessings for the day, and whatever you do, just keep chasing the dream.